Volo Bog began to form about 12,000 years ago when the Wisconsin Glacier receded from northeastern Illinois. Large blocks of ice broke away from the glacier and were buried in clay, sand, gravel, and boulders that washed out of melting glacier. As the climate warmed, these ice blocks melted, forming depressions called kettle holes. Lakes, bogs, marshes, and other wetlands formed in the kettles. The original lake here was very poorly drained with steep banks due to the stagnancy and anaerobic conditions were created, causing slow, incomplete decomposition of organic debris, forming peat. The poor drainage also caused the buildup of acids, which further inhibited decomposition. About 6,000 years ago, the lake began to fill with organic sediments. Eventually, a floating mat of peat, supported by the roots of living plants, began to form and encroach upon the old glacial lake, which is now filling in from the bottom up and from the top down. Notice the trees and shrubs extending to the left and right. These mark the edges of the old glacier. The marsh moat beyond is the outer ring surrounding Volo Bog. The wooden boardwalk will lead through this and 4 other unique vegetational communities. Passing from one community to the next is like walking backward in time. Cattails dominate the marshlands of the northeastern Illinois. They provide cover and food for a great variety of wildlife. Muskrats eat the roots, leaves, and young shoots and build lodges with their leaves. Autumn is a time of propagation among the plant world. Look for different methods of seed dispersal. Blowing cattail fuzz, they carry seeds. Exploding jewel wheat seed pods. Tick seed sunflower, whose seeds will stick to your clothing. Can you find others? Winterberry holly, the dominant plant in the tall shrub community, is so named due to the persistence of the berries after the leaves have fallen. It flowers in June. Oils throughout poison sumac may cause a rash worse than poison ivy. Learn to recognize the gray bark, compound leaves, and stout twigs. The tamarack trees here drown during times of high water. Living tamaracks lie ahead, growing on the floating mat that keeps them just moist enough but never too wet. Look for signs of life in the decaying wood. Look for ferns, descendants of tree-sized plants that were browsed upon by dinosaurs. Tamaracks are unusual pines. They're decutus. Every fall, their needles turn golden and drop into the peat soils, releasing tannic acid. Notice how the water is stained brown by these acids. Crush the fallen needles in your hands to enjoy their aroma. The fact that these tamaracks are alive and well indicates that they are on the floating mat. Their shallow spreading roots receive a constant amount of soil moisture as the trees float up and down with the changing water levels. Look for carnivorous pitcher plants. Their leaves are modified like pitchers to hold water. Insects are lured inside by glistening water within, which they mistake for a meal of nectar. Instead, they become a meal themselves, trapped by the slippery leaf surface and the down-pointing hairs inside. The dead insect decomposes, releasing nitrogen, which is absorbed by the leaf. This adaptation helps the plant obtain nutrients that are not available from the poorly decomposed peat soils. Mushrooms add color to the Volo Bog, living on nutrients available near the surface of the bog and on the decaying woods. Lichens are actually 2 organisms, a fungus and an algae. Yeah. Living in symbiosis, the mushroom provides living structure for the algae that in turn provides nourishment for the fungus. Remember, Freddy Fungus and Alice took a lichen. Lichens are believed to be an indicator of air quality, with the fluffier types tolerating less pollution. We don't have any very fluffy lichens. The tamarack forest grades gradually into a low shrub community of bog birch, willows, poison sumac, and young tamaracks.
Rope.
This pond is all that remains of the old Kettle lake that once covered about 50 acres. Over the past 6,000 years, it has been filling in with vegetation that is encroaching upon the middle. Today, Volo Bog is the only such peatland in Illinois still to have an open water center surrounded by floating soils. Eventually, even this will fill in. This is a natural process called succession. In nature, nothing stays the same for long. A true bog is a mineral poor and it receives water only from the sky. By this definition, Volo Bog does not qualify because some runoff does feed into the wetland basin from the surrounding hills. Volo Bog can be declassified as a fen. Nature does not always fit neatly into our human-imposed categories.
Sit quietly for a while and watch. Listen for a splash of water where a muskrat or mink swims. Migrating sandhill crane may be heard trumpeting from huge kettles above the while insects buzz nearby. Oh.
As early as 10,000 years ago, people lived in northeastern Illinois. They probably settled along the Fox River and the Chino Lakes area. Volo Bog and other wetlands away from the big waterways would have been good hunting grounds and places to gather cattails, arrowhead, roots, blueberries, and other edible plants. W.G. Waterman first described Volo Bog to the scientific community in 1920. Many scientists followed, including William Beecher, who first arrived to the outer edge of Volo Bog as a kid on a bicycle. Dr. Beecher's love of nature led him into the directorship of the Chicago Academy of Sciences. Nearby residents of Volo Bog used to hunt and collect berries for pies.
Berries.
The open water in this area is a result of early attempts to control the water flow in and around Volo Bog. During wet years, the water is high, and the wetland is marshland mosaic of open water and emerged plants. In drier years, sedges and grasses over the entire area like a meadow. Wildlife is often observed in this area. Here are just some of the animals whose sign are often seen. Occasionally a quiet visitor gets lucky and sees an animal that is using the boardwalk for easy.
In the early 1900s, the area around Volo Bog was a dairy farm. Local folktales tell of cows and horses disappearing. Could they have wandered out onto the floating soils and broken through, never to resurface? Maybe. The farmer sold his land to a sportsman club in 1940. Go-karts, ski shooting, hunting, and fishing were popular. None of this was a threat to ecology of the Volo Bog. In 1958, the newly formed Illinois chapter of the Nature Conservancy purchased Volo Bog. It was turned over to the University of Illinois for management. Many students of U of I and other colleges visit the study Volo Bog. In 1970, following threats to Volo Bog from impending development, the state of Illinois took control of the treasure and designated it as an Illinois Natural Preserve.